The greatest secret for eliminating the inferiority complex, which is another term for deep and profound self-doubt, is to fill your mind to overflowing with faith. Develop a tremendous faith in God, and that will give you a humble yet soundly realistic faith in yourself. The acquiring of dynamic faith is accomplished by prayer, lots of prayer, by reading and mentally absorbing the Bible, and by practicing its faith techniques. In another chapter, I deal with specific formulas of prayer, but I want to point out here that the type of prayer that produces the quality of faith required to eliminate inferiority is of a particular nature. Surface skimming, formalistic and perfunctory prayer is not sufficiently powerful. A wonderful woman, a cook in the home of friends of mine in Texas, was asked how she so completely mastered her troubles. She answered that ordinary problems could be met by ordinary prayers, but that when a big trouble comes along, you have to pray deep prayers. One of my most inspiring friends was the late Harlow B. Andrews of Syracuse, New York, one of the best businessmen and competent spiritual experts I ever knew. He said the trouble with most prayers is that they aren't big enough. To get anywhere with faith, said he, learn to pray big prayers. God will rate you according to the size of your prayers. Doubtless he was right, for the scriptures say, according to your faith be it unto you. That's Matthew 9:29. So the bigger your problem, the bigger your prayer should be. Roland Hayes, the singer, quoted his grandfather to me, a man whose education was not equal to that of his grandson, but whose native wisdom was obviously sound. He said, the trouble with lots of prayers is they ain't got no suction. Drive your prayers deep into your doubts, fears, inferiorities. Pray deep, big prayers that have plenty of suction, and you will come up with powerful and vital faith. Go to a competent spiritual advisor and let him teach you how to have faith. The ability to possess and utilize faith and gain the release of powers it provides are skills, and like any skills, must be studied and practiced to gain perfection. At the conclusion of this chapter are listed 10 suggestions for overcoming your inferiority pattern and for developing faith. Practice these rules diligently, and they will aid you in developing confidence in yourself by dissipating your feelings of inferiority, however deeply embedded. At this point, however, I wish to indicate that to build up feelings of self-confidence, the practice of suggesting confidence concepts to your mind is very effective. If your mind is obsessed by thoughts of insecurity and inadequacy, it is, of course, due to the fact that such ideas have dominated your thinking over a long period of time. Another and more positive pattern of ideas must be given the mind, and that is accomplished by repetitive suggestion of confidence ideas. In the busy activities of daily existence, thought disciplining is required if you are to re-educate the mind and make of it a power-producing plant. It is possible, even in the midst of your daily work, to drive confident thoughts into consciousness. Let me tell you about one man who did so by the use of a unique method. One icy winter morning, he called for me at a hotel in a Midwestern city to take me about 35 miles to another town to fill a lecture engagement. We got into his car and started off at a rather high rate of speed on the slippery road. He was going a little faster than I thought reasonable, and I reminded him that we had plenty of time and suggested that we take it easy. Don't let my driving worry you, he replied. I used to be filled with all kinds of insecurities myself, but I got over them. I was afraid of everything. I feared an automobile trip or an airplane flight, and if any of my family went away, I worried until they returned. I always went around with a feeling that something was going to happen, and it made my life miserable. I was saturated with inferiority and lacked confidence. This state of mind reflected itself in my business, and I wasn't doing very well. But I hit upon a wonderful plan which knocked all these insecurity feelings out of my mind, and now I live with a feeling of confidence, not only in myself, but in life generally. This was the wonderful plan. He pointed to 2 clips fastened on the instrument panel of the car just below the windshield and, reaching into the glove compartment, took out a pack of small cards. He selected one and slipped it beneath the clip. It read, "If ye have faith, nothing shall be impossible unto you." Matthew 17:20. He removed that one, shuffled expertly through the cards with one hand as he drove, selected another and placed it under the clip. This one read, "If God be for us, who can be against us?" Romans 8:31. "I'm a traveling salesman," he explained, "and I drive around all day calling on my customers. I have discovered that while a man drives, he thinks all kinds of thoughts. If his pattern of thought is negative, he will think many negative thoughts during the day, and that, of course, is bad for him. But that is the way I used to be. I used to drive around all day between calls thinking fear and defeat thoughts, and incidentally, that is one reason my sales were down. But since I have been using these cards, as I drive and committing the words to memory, I have learned to think differently. The old insecurities that used to haunt me are just about all gone, and instead of thinking fear thoughts of defeat and ineffectiveness, I think thoughts of faith and courage. It is really wonderful the way this method has changed me. It has helped in my business, too. For how can one expect to make a sale if he drives up to a customer's place of business thinking he is not going to make a sale? This plan used by my friend is a very wise one. By filling his mind with affirmations of the presence, support, and help of God, he had actually changed his thought processes. He put an end to the domination of his long-held sense of insecurity. His potential powers were set free. We build up the feeling of insecurity or security by how we think. If in our thoughts we constantly fix attention upon sinister expectations of dire events that might happen, the result will be constantly to feel insecure. And what is even more serious is the tendency to create, by the power of thought, the very condition we fear. This salesman actually created positive results by vital thoughts of courage and confidence through the process of placing the cards before him in his car. His powers, curiously inhibited by defeat psychology, now flowed out of a personality in which creative attitudes had been stimulated. Lack of self-confidence, apparently, is one of the great problems besetting people today. In a university, a survey was made of 600 students in psychology courses. The students were asked to state their most difficult personal problem. 75% listed lack of confidence. It can safely be assumed that the same large proportion is true of the population generally. Everywhere you encounter people who are inwardly afraid, who shrink from life, who suffer from a deep sense of inadequacy and insecurity, who doubt their own powers. Deep within themselves, they mistrust their ability to meet responsibilities or to grasp opportunities. Always they are beset by the vague and sinister fear that something is not going to be right. They do not believe that they have it in them to be what they want to be, and so they try to make themselves content with something less than that of which they are capable. Thousands upon thousands go crawling through life on their hands and knees, defeated and afraid. And in most cases, such frustration of power is unnecessary. The blows of life, the accumulation of difficulties, the multiplication of problems tend to sap energy and leave you spent and discouraged. In such a condition, the true status of your power is often obscured, and a person yields to a discouragement that is not justified by the facts. It is vitally essential to reappraise your personality assets. When done in an attitude of reasonableness, this evaluation will convince you that you are less defeated than you think you are. For example, a man 52 years of age consulted me. He was in great despondency. He revealed utter despair. He said he was all through. He informed me that everything he had built up over his lifetime had been swept away. Everything? I asked. Everything. he repeated. He was through, he reiterated. I have nothing left at all. Everything is gone. There is no hope, and I am too old to start all over again. I have lost all faith. Naturally, I felt sympathetic toward him, but it was evident that his chief trouble was the fact that dark shadows of hopelessness had entered his mind and discolored his outlook, distorting it. Behind this twisted thinking, his true powers had retreated, leaving him without force. So, I said, suppose we take a piece of paper and write down the values you have left. There's no use, he sighed. I haven't a single thing left. I thought I told you that. I said, let's just see anyway. Is your wife still with you? Why, yes, of course, and she is wonderful. We have been married for 30 years. She would never leave me, no matter how bad things are. All right, let us put that down. Your wife is still with you, and she will never leave you no matter what happens. How about your children? Got any children? Yes, he replied. I have 3, and they are certainly wonderful. I have been touched by the way they have come to me and said, Dad, we love you and will stand by you. Well then, I said, that is number 2. 3 children who love you and who will stand by you. Got any friends? Yes, he said. I really have some fine friends. I must admit they have been pretty decent. They have come around and said they would like to help me, but what can they do? They can't do anything. That is number 3. You have some friends who would like to help you and who hold you in esteem. How about your integrity? Have you done anything wrong? My integrity is all right, he replied. I have always tried to do the right thing, and my conscience is clear. All right, I said, we will put that down as number 4, integrity. How about your health? My health is all right, he answered. I've had very few sick days, and I guess I am in pretty good shape physically. So let's put down as number 5, good physical health. How about the United States? Do you think it's still doing business and is the land of opportunity? Yes, he said. It is the only country in the world I would want to live in. That is number 6. You live in the United States, land of opportunity, and you are glad to be here. Then I asked, how about your religious faith? Do you believe in God and that God will help you? Yes, he said, I do not think I could have gotten through this at all if I hadn't had some help from God. Now, I said, let's list the assets we have figured out. 1. A wonderful wife married for 30 years. 2. 3 devoted children who will stand by you. 3. Friends who will help you and who hold you in esteem. 4. Integrity, nothing to be ashamed of. 5. Good physical health. 6. Live in the United States, the greatest country in the world. 7. You have religious faith. I shoved it across the table at him. Take a look at that. I guess you have quite a total of assets. I thought you told me everything had been swept away. He grinned ashamedly. I guess I didn't think of those things. I never thought of it that way. Perhaps things aren't so bad at that, he said pensively. Maybe I can start all over again if I can just get some confidence, if I can get the feel of some power within me. Well, he got it, and he did start all over again. But he did so only when he changed his viewpoint, his mental attitude. Faith swept away his doubts, and more than enough power to overcome all his difficulties emerged from within him. This incident illustrates a profound truth which is expressed in a very important statement made by the famous psychiatrist Dr. Carl Menninger. He said, attitudes are more important than facts. That is worth repeating until it grips you. Any fact facing us, however difficult, even seemingly hopeless, is not so important as our attitude toward that fact. How you think about a fact may defeat you before you ever do anything about it. You may permit a fact to overwhelm you mentally before you start to deal with it actually. On the other hand, a confident and optimistic thought pattern can modify or overcome the fact altogether. I know a man who is a tremendous asset to his organization, not because of any extraordinary ability, but because he invariably demonstrates a triumphant thought pattern. Perhaps his associates view a proposition pessimistically. So he employs what he calls the vacuum cleaner method. That is, by a series of questions, he sucks the dust out of his associates' minds. He draws out their negative attitudes. Then quietly, he suggests positive ideas concerning the proposition until a new set of attitudes gives them a new concept of the facts. They often comment about how different facts appear when this man goes to work on them. It's the confidence attitude that makes a difference. Nor does this rule out objectivity in an appraisal of facts. The inferiority complex victim sees all facts through discolored attitudes. The secret of correction is simply to gain a normal view, and that is always slanted on the positive side. So if you feel that you are defeated and have lost confidence in your ability to win, sit down, take a piece of paper and make a list, not of the factors that are against you, but of those that are for you. If you or I or anybody think constantly of the forces that seem to be against us, we will build them up into a power far beyond that which is justified. They will assume a formidable strength which they do not actually possess. But if, on the contrary, you mentally visualize and affirm and reaffirm your assets and keep your thoughts on them, emphasizing them to the fullest extent, you will rise out of any difficulty, regardless of what it may be. Your inner powers will reassert themselves, and with the help of God, lift you from defeat to victory.